You are listening to Slave Song, an enhanced audiobook written by Jay Koh. Episode 1. Welcome to Korea. Prologue. Incheon International Airport, South Korea. The Incheon International Airport is a testament to the remarkable rise of South Korea's economy and its leadership in the digital age. It is an ultra-modern facility with world-class amenities, crowning Incheon as one of the world's best places for travelers to transit through Asia. High atop its towering halls, a giant video display is broadcasting a breaking news story from BBC World News.
The South Korean Ministry of Justice just announced that a break in a 20-year-old cold murder case has led to a historic extradition of a fugitive who is currently in custody in the United States of America. The identity of this fugitive is not yet released, but he is the main suspect in the 1999 murder of his own parents, which has been unresolved for over 20 years. This suspect has been missing and presumed dead until his recent arrest and positive identification in America for multiple violent crimes there. The suspect will be transported to South Korea to stand trial for his crimes in the next few days.
Present day, Los Angeles, California. A convoy of 10 black SUVs speed down the highway with helicopter escorts in the air. Half of the SUVs in this fleet break off the convoy, taking an exit toward Burbank Airport. The remaining fleet remain en route to Los Angeles International Airport. Inside the center vehicle heading to LAX is prisoner number 344691, also known as Slave Song, to his fellow inmates. His head is covered with a black balaclava, and both of his hands and feet are shackled together in chains. His orange prisoner jumpsuit contrasts strikingly against two U.S. Marshals adjacent to him in the back seat. The Marshals are clad in full tactical combat gear. In the front seat is the U.S. Marshal in charge, Royce Danner. Danner is a 40-year veteran with sandy white hair and a gravity-defying handlebar mustache. He loves wearing his cowboy Stetsons, despite its style clashing against his modern tactical gear. He is a living personification of a Western gunslinger, and did not downplay his famous reputation. Marshal Danner looks back at the prisoner and considers removing the balaclava. He felt that it was inhumane to deprive a person of his senses, even if he was a prisoner. Song Bae-lim has been a cooperative captive, showing no signs of malice. A perfect gentleman. Yet, there was a palpable tang of danger about him. Nothing about today's prisoner transport was by the book. Marshal Danner had a visit a few days ago by the Secret Service, who insisted on elevated precautions for this prisoner handoff. It was rare that they got involved in such matters, the first time in Marshal Danner's long career. The boys of the service were cryptic as to the why they cared, but offered their helicopter escorts along with a fleet of their finest armored vehicles for use. This was a much generous interdepartmental sharing of resources, which the Marshal could not pass up in good conscience. They even offered up one of their own as a decoy, dressed identical to the prisoner. This was a precaution only when a threat of a sniper was credible. Danner would not have put that assignment upon any of his marshals. Some poor Secret Service agent who drew the short straw was sweating bullets under a balaclava heading to Burbank. Two visually identical convoys were set up with two separate destinations. No one on his team knew exactly where. All this extra security piqued the Marshal's curiosity about the nature of their prisoner, but there was nothing he could find in official reports that demanded such heightened security. The truth was definitely above his pay grade. The prisoner's accused crimes were gruesome, but this level of security was really for protecting presidents. The Marshal checks the time on his wristwatch, then radios the entire convoy.
We are approximately 30 away, gentlemen. Keep cool, and eye sharp. The highway patrol is clearing the traffic for us, but if we slow down to a crawl, I want weapon safeties off and ready to engage. If guns point your way, you light them up, then ask questions later.
Much to the marshal's relief, the convoy arrives without incident, and they unload with rehearsed precision. Additional airport security with bomb-sniffing K-9 units clear the way for the marshals as they swiftly escort Songbei to a boarding gate. A South Korean security team awaits this prisoner handoff at the gate, led by a female prosecutor who looks a bit too young to be in charge. Her four-man security team is dressed awkwardly in off-the-rack navy blazers, which seem to strain against their massive muscles underneath. The prosecutor contrasts strikingly from her team, as she is a petite female dressed handsomely in a sharp custom-tailored designer suit. Prosecutor Ye Shin-so is one of the few active female prosecutors in South Korea's male-dominated judicial system. She is anxious, a bit unnerved by the unusual circumstance she is in today. The speed and execution of this extradition puzzled her from the very beginning. From her reading of Songbei Lim's accused crimes in America, she could not understand why the US DOJ would let him go so eagerly. To add to this mystery, the case file she's been studying on Songbei's accused crime in Korea was fragmented, weak, and inconsistent. Not to mention that it was over 20 years ago when Songbei Lim was just a boy barely 10 years old. It was unthinkable for her to imagine a young boy murdering his own mother and father so brutally. But this is her first major case assigned to prosecute, having been promoted to her position just a few weeks ago. Beyond the legal issues, what added to her anxiety was the office gender politics looming over her like storm clouds. Ye Shin's male colleagues were not welcoming of her sudden rise in the department. There was resentment and speculation that her gender was the main reason for her promotion. Even her direct supervisor, the prosecutor general, did not hide his feelings.
This came directly from the minister himself. I would not have assigned this to you. A case this public needs someone with more experience. But I understand having more female faces will look good for politics.
Ye Shin has been fighting gender politics all her life. Unwanted attention from her early teens to awkward years in law school. She was judged constantly by her physical appearance. Her close friends often called her an ugly duck in a pretty duck's body. Ye Shin had to prove, yet again, that she was more than just a future trophy wife. Ye Shin's heart rate climbs as she spots the parade of armed marshals approaching. A bomb-sniffing K-9 unit casually checks her over. Her security team leader notices that even this beast was wearing a Kevlar vest. She tries not to show it, but is alarmed by this extreme level of security. This sentiment is also reflected by her security team, having now witnessed the tactical combat gear donned by their American counterparts. They feel naked and impotent. They try to compensate by giving more flex to their muscles, straining under their navy blazers. This is the first time such a violent criminal has been extradited back to Korea from America. Previously, most extraditions involved those who committed financial crimes. They fled Korea to hide overseas, but it was nearly impossible to evade capture in this age of video surveillance and social media. The usual procedure for welcoming them back to Korea was cradled between two police officers in plastic flex cuffs. Metal restraints would have been inconvenient passing through detectors, and a commercial airline was always used to minimize expenses for transportation. Since there were little to no safety concerns with these non-violent criminals, the entire process was kept simple and efficient. But this is the first time a violent criminal is being transported, and the extra precaution added by the Korean government was sending 4 of the most physically endowed agents to manhandle the single prisoner. Prosecutor Ye Shin-so was sent because of her English language fluency and the required paperwork to be signed before this historic extradition. 3 hours before this exchange, her team began to realize that they had underestimated the threat level facing them. The sheer amount of assault rifles and police personnel present today was shocking. This made Ye Shin nervous, but that was nothing compared to her security team, who felt like they showed up with a stick to a gunfight. Marshal Danner approached Ye Shin with a confident smile. He does a quick assessment of her team and seems to smell the fear emanating from them. His shiny gold badge catches Ye Shin's eyes. She marvels at his ridiculously long mustache and the cowboy Stetsons atop his head. The marshal tries to address the nervous glances coming from her teen.
Don't you worry, ma'am. All this fuss is to assure his safety. I promise he won't bite. He's been a perfect gentleman.
The marshal gives Ye Shin a friendly wink, then turns around to remove the balaclava hiding Song Bei's face. Her hands get clammy, and her mouth dries up as the marshal reveals a tall Korean man in his 30s. His hair is cropped short, and his face is cleanly shaven, but there is cold intensity in his eyes. Song Bei stares back at Ye Shin, and she swallows the fear churning inside her gut. His stare is menacing. There's an unspoken warning behind them, a promise of violence and suffering. Ye Shin's doubts about the case was premature. This man might be a monster capable of killing his mother and father. Song Bei looks away from Ye Shin and surveys his surroundings, as if looking for threats. Behind ropes at a safe distance away, the passengers gather to get a glimpse of the commotion. Airport security holds the line, and cell phones are told to be put away for any social media postings. A small Korean boy is looking on, sipping banana-flavored milk through a thin straw. Song Bei meets his eyes, and the boy freezes in mid-sip. The boy stares back, as if in a trance. Then something compels him to reach out with the banana milk, perhaps an offering of peace. As if surrendering, Song Bei's cold stare melts away in an instant. He breaks a soft smile, surprisingly warm and kind. The boy smiles back, but his mother, noticing her child's interaction, hurries him away from the scene. Ye Shin did not miss this interaction between the boy and Song Bei, and it eased her fears a little bit. The marshal continues to uncuff Song Bei from his full-body restraints. This got an immediate response from her security team. They protest with much embarrassment. They came unprepared, armed only with zip-tie restraints. Marshal Danner stops, unsure what to do. Song Bei speaks for the first time.
It's okay, Marshal. These chains don't bother me.
Marshal looks back at the nervous security team and nods in understanding. He hands over the keys to Ye Shin.
Compliments of the U.S. Marshal Service. Consider it a souvenir, ma'am.
The captain of the Asiana Flight 262 is not happy with today's special guest. He's had prisoner transports before, but it was always discreet. What he witnessed today at the boarding gate was disturbing, and he was not the only one who felt this way. The passengers were starting to protest. Fortunately, it was not a full flight, so he emptied out the upstairs business class cabin, then upgraded the prisoner transport from economy class. The captain hoped that by isolating them upstairs, it brought some level of security to the rest of the passengers for the 12-hour flight. Meal service begins, and Ye Shin requests milk, instead of the complimentary champagne. She is glad to be traveling in business class, instead of the economy seat she had to endure before, sandwiched between 4 large men. Since they have the entire upstairs cabin at their disposal, her security team decides to put 2 on the left and right side of Song Bei, 1 behind him and 1 next to the stairway leading down. The team was fumbling about, trying to anchor Song Bei to the seat. Ye Shin voiced that an escape attempt was unlikely from 40,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean. This led to some lively debate, which she thought was comical. Song Bei had an amused look on his face the entire time. It was ironic to her that the most at ease was the one in chains. Another enjoying this circus is the flight attendant, who drew the service duty for this cabin. To Ye Shin's surprise, the bold stewardess is actually starstruck by Song Bei. She shamelessly asked if it was okay to take a selfie with him. Ye Shin's immediate reaction was an astounding no. She felt strangely possessive of her prisoner at the thought of some pretty stewardess pining all over him like a love-struck teenager. Ye Shin took quick control of her emotions, then made up a more professional-sounding excuse regarding the prisoner's right to privacy. Song Bei watched this awkward interaction with a raised eyebrow, but said nothing. When the meal service begins, Ye Xin notices that Song Bei is struggling to eat because of his restraints. But before she can intervene, the eager stewardess offers to hand feed him. Ye Xin quickly dismisses her and takes charge. She picks up his utensils and starts to portion out the filet mignon. She decides that a little dinner conversation might be okay, as long as no legally relevant topics are brought up.
Do you speak Korean?
Song Bei looks at her curiously, but he does not respond. Ye Xin can appreciate a man of few words, especially when their eyes are so expressive.
Would you like me to unchain you? Obviously, there's nowhere to run.
Song Bei looks over to her nervous security team. He shakes his head no, then he gestures with his eyes to the knife and fork in her hands. Ye Xin realizes the damage she's doing to the meat on the plate. The pink juices from the cut-up steak looks different now. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to give him a knife. Ye Xin decides that hand-feeding him would show him that she's not scared. She feels a bit ridiculous, but continues. She forks a piece, dabs a bit of buttery mashed potatoes, and holds it up to Song Bei's mouth.
You're not vegetarian, right?
Song Bei shakes his head, then cautiously takes the bite. Ye Xin puts her banana milk on his tray. This was her ultimate peace offering, remembering his response to the boy at the boarding gate. She pokes a straw on top and raises it to his mouth. He looks at her with curiosity, unsure what to do. Ye Xin breaks the stalemate, taking a sip first, then she puts it back near his mouth.
See, it's not poisoned.
Song Bei stares back. He then gives her a faint smile. He decides to play along and takes a sip. The flavor of the milk stirs up lost memories. It's been a long time since he tasted bananas. Ye Xin was starting to overcome her fear of him. Their close physical proximity gives her a chance to really get a good look at him. Song Bei is definitely not boy band pretty, but is strikingly handsome once you get past his frightening aura. Ye Xin is drawn to unusual scars around his neck. At first, she thought it was a tattoo, with such uniform patterns repeating around his neck, like a necklace. But upon closer inspection, it was definitely a scar from years past.